everybody. Good morning and welcome to my LinkedIn Live interview series where I bring on inspiring people, that's the P, to inform, that's the I, and educate you, that's the E. I call this social media pie. And with me this morning, I have Heather Woodruff. Hey, Heather, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Brenda. How are you?
I'm doing great, really good. And I want to say thank you so much, Heather, for making the time to join us here today. We were kind of talking behind the scenes here, and we had originally had this interview scheduled in July. And as I was getting closer to July, I looked at the calendar. I'm like, July 5th. I'm like, that's the day after Independence Day holiday. And I'm like, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of coming off of the holiday weekend, and I know a lot of other
Right.
folks may not be watching. And I reached out to you at that time, and I said, hey, how about we redo this for a different date and time?
Yeah.
And then I realized a little scheduling snafu. I think I sent you said yes, and we agreed on the date, and I sent the invitation to the wrong email address. And then yesterday, I think we were communicating on LinkedIn, and luckily we got it all worked out. And she's like, "We're good." So I want to say thank you so much for your flexibility, Heather.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure to be here.
Well, great. So I'm looking forward to chatting, and I'm so grateful for the introduction. We were connected by way of Sherry Underwood. So I'm going to give Sherry a shout out right now and thank her for the introduction. And we actually just had a get to know you call originally, and had such a great conversation. I said, hey, why don't we come on a LinkedIn Live and chat a little bit more? And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about how you know that hiring is a sales function. Before we do that, Heather, I want to invite our audience, for those that are coming in and finding the stream right now, if you guys could do us a favor, drop a comment below, say good morning, say hi, let us know where you're watching from. If you're drinking a morning beverage, coffee, tea, anything like that, let us know what you're drinking in the morning. That way we know the live stream is picking up and it's working. And Sherry, one thing I started to do recently is instead of broadcasting on my Brenda Meller activity feed, I'm now pushing this to the Meller marketing activity feed because videos sit in a nice tab and it's much easier to find them later for folks. So I'm doing a little bit of merchandising on my personal profile this morning as we're driving people back. And as I see their comments coming in, I'll start to put them up on screen. While we're waiting for that, Sherry, I'm sorry, Heather, why don't you I got Sherry on my brain right now.
Right. Yeah, that's all right. We can always call out to Sherry.
I know. She's, good energy. So Heather, why don't you take a few minutes? Tell us a little bit about you and your role at Business Resources One.
Absolutely. So I am the Vice President of Talent Acquisition Services here at Business Resources One. And we are a company that offers business services to others. So we specialize in talent acquisition. We specialize in training. But we do have some additional items that we can give to people if they need one-on-one mentoring, they need specific type of business instruction, more specified maybe to finance or HR or those types of things. But the two top things that we really try to concentrate on are talent acquisition and training. And we know right now that talent acquisition out in the world is really, really getting difficult for people. And so, it's my team. That's the exciting part for me as, I have a great team here of talent acquisition specialists, marketing specialists who are really dedicated to going out into the world and finding that for people who need some extra help. So that's kind of what we do. A little bit on me, I've been in talent acquisition for over 15 years. I also am a certified digital marketing specialist through the AMA and the DMI. I have like I said, a team of people here that work with me, and we're forever growing. It seems like we just never stop hiring internally as well. So we feel the pain of what everybody's going through and, and how that can be a struggle. And so it was important to me when you and I chatted. I really thought it was great because I think a lot of times so many people are out there trying to figure out how to market to the people they want on their team or how to just get enough people to apply. And I think that there's probably a different approach that could help those folks who are really struggling to find the talent that they want. So I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I am too. And it's interesting how much the market has changed over even just the past few years. It seems like there's a little bit of shift that's happening right now too. I mean, the pandemic was like a lot of people laid off, the hiring market kind of froze basically. And then we were all playing catch up and scrambled and trying to fill the positions. And at the same time, a lot of people, what were they calling it? The great resignation, like where everybody was like putting in their notices and starting to jump jobs. And now I'm hearing like people starting to jump they're like, well, the grass wasn't always greener, and they're looking to jump back or find something
Yeah.
different instead. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to your thoughts, but I have to say I was intrigued because when I reached out and I said, let's schedule this interview, I said, pick any topic you want to talk about. And you said, let's call it how I know hiring is a sales function. I was
Yeah.
like, ooh, I like it. It's intriguing. So why, Heather, is, in your opinion, why is hiring a sales function?
Yeah, I think in this day and age, hiring is much more of a sales function because you are now in a position where you have to sell your company to those employees who are coming aboard. And so you need to take that approach of saying, hey, here are all the value added benefits we have for you in addition to just providing you employment. And here are the ways that we can enhance your life, enhance the growth you might be receiving from your company, and the communication and the teamwork, the culture. So really trying to focus in on what makes your company better than the competitor next to them, and how to actually sell that to your employee, or to your future employee, I should say, is really the key to making sure you're not only attracting talent, but you're attracting that top talent.
That's interesting. So do you think this has changed over the past few years, or do you feel like has hiring always been, had a sales role or like a sales focus to it? What do you think?
I would say to a certain extent, it's always had a sales focus.
Mhm.
I think a lot of people have been in that function, understand that, when they're reaching out to people and telling them about the company, that is a somewhat of a sales role.
Mhm.
But I don't often think that people really were drilling down into their company to see, outside of maybe the normal benefits, the normal pay, how are they really going about supporting their employees once they come aboard? Are they
Mhm.
really taking care of all their basic needs? Are they taking care of their psychological needs? Because there are ways and steps that each business can take in order to try and increase those areas.
Mhm.
And even monitoring their business is a way to increase how they appear to others outside of their business, because, as you know, perception is key. So
Mhm.
there are just so many steps to it. It's multifaceted. So a lot of times, the first advice that I try to give to folks that we're talking to is really kind of figuring out if their house is in order. So, are they making sure that they do offer everything so they can sell appropriately, like competitive pay, their health insurance, their savings, or their 401k, safety against accident or injury. Those basic needs have to be met for somebody to even be interested in your company. And then in this day and age, it has to be then compounded by whether or not you're going to be able to meet people's psychological needs. So things like, do you have developed plans of showing appreciation to your employees? Do you are you having really respectful relationships with your employees? Do you have a way for them to give back to the community? And do you think your culture is supporting employees feeling really accepted at work, and feeling like that's a safe space that they can enter into every day? I mean, we dedicate so much time to our work that
Right.
people are really looking to have it meet both those basic and psychological needs.
It's so interesting that you talk about there, and there's a lot of discussion going on right now. I think there's an article going around with, I think it's Malcolm Gladwell, if I'm not mistaken, where I don't know if you heard it, and there's a lot of buzz, but he was talking about people working from home and how this new environment, that's been created. And he came out pretty strong with this statement about, if you're working from home, if you're sitting around in your pajamas working out of your bedroom, are you really getting the most out of your working experience, and are you
Mhm.
really going to go up in the organ? And a lot of people, got kind of taken aback by that type of statement. But I think, to the point there, that you were alluding to, is like, are you being competitive with what the market is offering? And also, are you listening? And is what I heard you say, are you listening to what your employees are asking for? And even probably potential candidates as too. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's how you attract those potential candidates. I mean, a lot of
Mhm.
times I'll speak in employee terms because, really making sure that you're supporting your employees is exactly what is needed in order to support your recruitment. It's going to increase
Mhm.
how they talk about you online. It's going to increase your company reputation. And then it helps increase the amount of people that are both going to actively apply,
Mhm.
or even when you go out into the world to possibly passively recruit, it helps make sure that those folks are heard of you, and they've heard of you in a positive way. So yeah, and I tend to agree. It's tough. I think working from home has its benefits as far as like maybe a time management is concerned. But I am also concerned for people making sure that they have enough time away from home and adult conversation and interaction that they also are meeting the psychological needs that they have. So yeah.
It's very true. I mean, I think we've all gone through a lot the past couple of years, and I've heard many psychologists talk about the fact that when you're in a traumatic situation, you really don't feel the effects of it. It's once you start to come out of it that you allow yourself to feel what you've been, kind of holding back on. And part of that is, I think, that missing the human interaction, missing the opportunity to interact and to be around other people. And there may be positive aspects and even some potential negative aspects of that in that returning to being among people again. I even felt like that. I was at a trip with my family over the weekend. We were in a hotel elevator, and I was like, there's other people in with us, and it kind of, you get this feeling of claustrophobic, like being in close spaces.
Yeah.
But at the same time, feeling like, gosh, it's nice to be around other adults and other human beings, right?
Yeah.
And having that interaction.
Yeah, it was funny. I was comparing it at one point in my head a little bit. I had a conversation with a friend of mine recently, and I think a lot of new mothers can relate. So, they when they go on maternity leave and they're all of a sudden cut off from their normal routine, and they're in this new routine, and they love obviously being home and taking care of their absolute newborn baby is a joy. But you often hear them as they come off of that say, oh, it's so nice to enter back in and have someone else to interact with, that isn't just my infant, because I missed that. I didn't realize how much I would miss that. And so, there's oftentimes, I think we as human beings discount that aspect of our work relationships. And that actually is a lot of the value add too. I mean, when it comes to that psychological piece, one of the reasons I mentioned, how long we're at work, we work, most of us, at least 40 hours a week. We spend as much time with our teammates and our coworkers as we do quite often with our family. And so the people that are out there looking for other roles and other places to work, those candidates really are looking to have an experience at the next place that they go to. They're not just looking to come and earn a paycheck anymore. It's just not how people's minds are set up. And they're starting to realize that there's a benefit to looking to make sure that both the company, not only they're a good fit for the company, but is that candidate a good fit for the role they're about to go into? Will it make them happy? Will it make them feel fulfilled? Can you push them in that role to fulfill their potential? So matching people up is really, really important. And I guess that's also why I said it was a sales function, is we really want, so, first, there's like 78% of the candidates out there are in the passive category. So your active applicants, are not even the majority of your pool of people that you're going to go out and speak to. So oftentimes when you go to reach out to those candidates, one of the reasons you really need to know who your company is, what you have to offer, all of those things need to be set up on the back end. When you go to speak to those passive candidates, you really are in a position of selling that company. They could be very comfortable at the company they're at. They may not be looking to leave. So it is important to take the stance of understanding who they are and what they value. I tell the girls right now, I have two women working for me, but I tell my two recruiters all the time how much, how important it is for them to make the candidate aware of why not only are they qualified for this position, but why this position will be a benefit to them.
I like that. And it's interesting. And I put the stat up on screen. I think you said 78% of candidates that was like amazing, but it's also, it sounds right, because there are a lot of people out there that we are trying to recruit that maybe aren't actively looking. And related to that, Heather, one thing I heard, and I can't remember who told me this. If I can figure it out, I'll tag the person below, but they said, if you don't turn down a conversation, you turn down a job offer. So if you're
Yes.
ever approached, and tell me what your thoughts are on that. If you're ever approached for a conversation about a potential job, because maybe you are in this passive category, you're not really looking.
Mhm.
Maybe you're not completely happy with everything, but it just seems like such a big thing to go through an interview and change jobs and change benefits and go all of these things. But my friend said to me once, don't turn that down. Always have the conversation. Even if it's not a good fit for you, you might be able to refer that opportunity out to someone else. And, it's a little bit of like networking. You get to know the company, get to know the person that's interviewing you
Right.
as well. What are your thoughts on that? And speaking to that passive, job seeker market that's not really looking for opportunities.
Yeah. So it's you're absolutely right. The opportunity of having the conversation with somebody you never want to pass up.
Mhm.
Number one, I mean, if nothing else, you get to walk away a little flattered they wanted to speak with you, anyways, because they sought you out. They were looking at you online, they were looking at you on paper, and they were saying, "Hey, we really think that you have some qualifications and qualities that we like, and for our team." And so it gives you the opportunity to speak to that company to find out whether or not they are a good fit for you. As you mentioned, it definitely opens up the opportunity to network, because even if that role that you're speaking to them about is not the right fit, you can either maybe find out that there's a different fit. That person could pass you along to someone else that they know. Or if for no other reason, it leaves the door open for a future role. So
Mhm.
now you've had started a conversation with somebody that you can reach out to in the future, or they can reach out to you in the future and say, "Hey, I know we spoke a few months ago, and the role I was speaking to you about wasn't quite the right fit, but you really liked the company. I have this other role. Would you like to discuss that?" So um, it it's a win-win for both
Mhm.
the company and the job seeker. Nobody is forcing you ever to say yes to something. In fact, we don't want you to. I think that's probably the biggest secret out there. If you're talking to a recruiter who really is trying to recruit well for the company that they're working for, that recruiter doesn't want to just put any person in every seat. It doesn't
Mhm.
work that way. Even if you look great on paper, there are so many things to match up. We want to make sure that person has all of the right characteristics for that role, that we're putting them on a team that will make them happy, that they're going to be challenged in ways that makes them happy. We want to
Mhm.
add to that company and create more success within that company, success for the individual, success for the company. So if we're
Mhm.
doing our job right, we really are trying to be kind of matchmakers in a
Right.
way. So having that conversation with people really opens up the opportunity to just see. It's just a let's see kind of conversation. So it's definitely something I would encourage people not to be scared of.
So, I mean, I'm speaking to those folks that are watching, whether you're watching this live or watching or listening to this in playback later. If you get approached by a recruiter on LinkedIn, just take the conversation, take that phone call. If nothing else, you get to know a little bit about another organization. It's flattering, of course, to be
Yeah.
approached by someone for that position. But I always tell job seekers, part of the interview is, they'll say, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I always
Yep.
encourage them to say, "What was it about my background or my LinkedIn profile or whatever that caused you to reach out to me?" Because you'll hear, what it is that people are seeing as strengths or areas that they think you could add to the organization. And even if you are not seriously looking to make a move, sometimes that conversation might cause you to think, well, if I were to move, and you talked about this already, Heather, what are the benefits that they're offering?
Yeah.
Because it's not always salary, right? It's
Right.
sometimes it's quality of life and it's additional benefits, well-being. It's the whole package, isn't it? It's not just the salary.
No, yeah, it can't be, that if that was the case, less people would move. Companies would have this down pat. They would understand how to retain people. It would just be pay them more, or,
Right.
normal increases. I mean, there would be
Mhm.
much more of a formula, but, human
Mhm.
beings aren't made to be formulas. We really have different role or different needs. That I think that's probably the most interesting part is
Mhm.
you're looking to fulfill quite a few different people's needs, wants, desires, um, at the same time, right? One company is looking at this vast group of people and trying to say, how can I make it so it's really attractive for you to come work here, because we know that we can satisfy what you need. Um,
Mhm.
and so the way that I always look at that is you have to really break it way down. You want to really look at from day one, how are you dealing with this candidate? How are you communicating with them? Are you making sure that you break up properly with your candidate is one of the things that I like to talk about. The candidate perception of the process includes all points of contact. So it's very important that the application, the interview, the onboarding is all taken seriously, so that person is stepping out into your company on the right foot. And then
so when you say breaking up with the candidate, are you referring about like if somebody's not a fit, letting them know at some point?
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, shoot, let's rewind to that just for a second. And there may be people watching that are job seekers that you've experienced this, or maybe a friend, wink, wink, who has experienced this as well, like the ghosting, right? And by the way, for folks that are watching, or whether you're watching live or in replay, if you're watching this on LinkedIn, if you do not interact with the post, we will not know that you are watching. So if you like or comment, we could potentially see, and that could potentially be public. So if this interview is of interest to you, no one's going to know that you're watching. So don't be shy about it. But I know that process, Heather, is frustrating for candidates, that getting ghosted. So what's your advice on both sides of it, both to recruiters, hiring managers who are doing it, and also on the candidate side, if they're getting ghosted, should they be reaching back out? Or a lot of people feel like, well, that's rude to keep nagging them. So speak to us, to both audiences on that side.
Sure. Yeah. Let me start first with the recruitment side. So I think there's a few things. Number one, if you want to make sure the communication is consistent. So every time you speak to a candidate, you want to set them up for what the next step is. So if you're going to contact them in 3 days, then you're adding that to your calendar, and you are contacting them in 3 days, even if it is just to tell them that you're going to follow back up with them 2 days later. So that follow through, that communication piece is the most integral part of anything you're doing with that candidate. If there's going to be a delay, communicate that. You want to be out in front of that communication. You want to be in charge of it. You want to be kind of dictating what is going on with it. Candidates are generally very good about rolling with the punches unless they don't know what's going on. So making sure that you just keep them informed is the best way that you can help work through that process. Secondarily, you want to have those key turnaround times internally. So the recruiters can control only so much. So if your hiring managers are a delay in the process, that can cause for a lot of lost opportunity with candidates, or it could make them feel like you're pushing them off. We know that a lot of hiring managers, and most, are extremely busy in their own roles, but prioritizing those candidates is extremely important, because it really does set them up on the right foot to believe that this company is going to support them through their relationship. So those are probably the two key things. The third one I would probably say is, are you authentic? Just because we're all human. So if you do make a mistake, apologize for it. Do you know what I mean? If there is something that is missed, pick up, call. I'm so sorry. I know I said I'd call you at 1 and it's 2, and that's my bad. And I hope we're not delaying things too much, and continue on with the conversation. So just being as authentic as possible. On the flip side, you were mentioning for the candidates, I would say on the candidate side, don't be scared to reach out. The candidate it's completely, actually kind of a plus when a candidate does reach out and try to follow up. The candidate is trying to make sure, obviously, that the situation's going well. They want to know where they're at. So if they're reaching back out, there's a missing communication piece for them. And so it's an opportunity for the company to make sure that that gap is actually protected. But on top of that, I just love when candidates send thank you letters after interviews. It just, not everyone remembers to do that kind of stuff. If they reach back out to ask questions, not every candidate is that engaged. It kind of speaks to how they're going to be when they work for you as well. If they come across an issue that they need a question asked and answered, that they will actually ask that question. So we really use that to help guide us as to whether or not that person has a high stellar, rate of communication as well. With that said, the only time I would say that I would probably advise candidates to tread a little bit carefully is if you have another offer on the table, your recruiter wants to know about that. If you're seriously considering two different companies, tell both, because that's the strongest position you as a candidate can be in. But I wouldn't necessarily put any type of, I would say, deadline on that. Some people
like I need to get an offer today, or I'm taking the other job, kind of a
right. I mean, because if that's the case, number one, the company might not always be able to turn around that quick. And I know for candidates, it can feel like a lot of pressure because maybe the other company said they needed to hear back by the end of the day. If you're their top candidate, you have a little more wiggle room than they're probably telling you. And if you've got two companies that you're considering, then you really do want to let the other company know what's going on. Let them know that there was a deadline that was issued to you. However, but don't necessarily push them into some type of offer at that point. Most companies I know, when pushed, will decide to step away from the candidate as opposed to necessarily battening it down, because it's one of those strong arm moves that doesn't sit well for some reason.
Could backfire too. And you don't want to make up a situation and say, well, I'm talking to somebody else. But I think, I mean, from a candidate marketability perspective, it's like, wow, they've got another position, another company's coming in. You don't want to lose that candidate. And we're going back to this topic of hiring as a sales function. I mean, you are just like in sales, we are competing for customers in the role of hiring. And in today's market, you are competing for top talent. So to go back to your earlier point of having a timeline in place and keeping the process moving forward, you can't wait a month now. It's you have to keep things moving quickly, especially if you've got a candidate that says, well, I really am definitely interested in your company in this particular position, but I have another offer on the table. And I think your point of, to diplomatically let them know and not, strong arm them into giving you an offer for a deadline, but just to say, company B has extended me an offer and they're expecting an answer by end of the week. So can you let me know where we are in the process? Am I still being considered? And what does your timeline look like? So I think probably being respectful, but giving some framework. Does that sound
absolutely? That's exactly right. Reach back out. You can call, you can email, whatever you'd like to do, depending on the relationship or communication style that you have with that company. Go ahead and reach out. Every recruiter, every company does want to talk to you before you accept an offer somewhere else. Because there is that, like you said, as a sales function, we are looking for the best candidates. If you're the best candidate, we want to tell you, hey, you're at the top of our list. We hope you can hang on a little bit longer. Our decision might not be made till, the day after you're giving us, but can you see if the other company will wait a minute if you seriously would like to take ours into consideration? So it opens up the conversation. And sometimes it does mean that we can push that offer through faster. It doesn't mean if we were just waiting on something small on our end, we've already made the decision to hire you and you let us know there's an offer on the table that is going to expire on Friday and you need to know before that. If we have the ability to, be able to take advantage and offer you that, we will. But you never want to just shut the door. I mean, you're basically saying, I'm going to take this one offer over here. I'm not going to see what this other company would have potentially given me so that I can compare the two and figure out which one is the best for me. And so, so that would be such a shame, it would be such a shame for the candidate not to take into consideration both offers that they have on the table.
Really good point. And I'm going to shift gears a little bit and just remind those that are watching, if you have any comments or questions for Heather, please drop them below. Whether you're watching this in live or in replay, I'll be sure to share the playback links with Heather later so that she can check out your comments. And if you're feeling kind of camera shy, maybe you don't want to ask the question on screen because you are a candidate who is in career transition, maybe passively, not letting your employer know. If we're connected on LinkedIn, you can message me on LinkedIn and I'll anonymously get that question over to Heather. Or on the flip side, if you are an organization that is looking maybe to get some positions filled, and you need some help with recruiting, that's a service that you provide consulting, training, or do you actually do the recruiting for companies? I want to make sure I
We do,
understand
yeah.
some of that
So
service.
we aren't a recruiting firm. We are more like an extension of your business. So
Gotcha.
if for some reason you've got, I mean, if you've got a full recruiting team, we can still be an extension of your business. But there's quite a few companies that are kind of at the point where having an entire recruiting team is extremely difficult. May not be a financial, place that they're in. Something that they can do right now. It is much easier for them to be able to find an organization like ours who can dedicate a recruitment team to doing that for them. We definitely can do that. We also can do, one-offs. If there's just a particular role that you're looking for, we can help you find that one particular person. But yeah, we excel in both. So that's one of the reasons we offered the talent acquisition with training, is because what we want to do is not only find you the best talent, but then also couple that up with training opportunities to help you keep that talent on staff and increase your retention rates, because we know that, those two things are tied together. There's no way to take those two things apart and have a successful program, Yeah.
And as you were talking right now, Heather, I was just thinking, someone who reached out to me this week through LinkedIn, of course, and messaged me, and he's been following me a while, and he said, "Hey, I know this is a bit outside of your lane, but we're looking to fill," and he's got a couple different companies. He's like, "We're looking to fill a position at two different companies. Is that something you can help me with, like getting the job posting up?" Or I think he was looking to get the job posting into LinkedIn Jobs. And I kind of was like, I've got enough client work I'm doing right now. And I said, I may be able to help you because I've done some postings on LinkedIn before, but it probably wouldn't be until September at the earliest, because I'm catching up on other work right now. Is that something I could refer to you, Heather? Do you help clients to build their job descriptions, to get them posted through LinkedIn, and then to help with the recruiting and screening process as well?
Yeah, so absolutely, we can do any of that. So that's one of the reasons part of my team is a marketing positions, is so that we can help people out with any of their career pages, any of their LinkedIn pages that they might need additional services for. And job descriptions. We also help with optimal characteristics. That's definitely something that I always want people to take into consideration. Optimal characteristics are also known as candidate profiles. So instead of just learning about what background, education, history you want that person to have for that role, you're also going to be looking at what makes them a really good fit, what optimal characteristics. So do you need them to be, high-level communicators? Do you need them to be ultra kind, high-level customer service? What is it that kind of makes that person up in order to give them the skills necessary to do the job at a really high performing level, as opposed to just kind of filling the role?
Okay, good to know. And I'm going to put that back up on screen and remind myself as I'm watching the playback. I'm going to share this video with that person that reached out to me that asked for that help. I'm curious, and I'm going to ask one question, and then we'll start to wrap up our chat for today. My area of specialty is LinkedIn, and helping people. I always kind of say helping people get a bigger slice of that LinkedIn pie. How important, Heather, do you feel that individual profiles as well as company pages are? And especially we're talking about hiring as a sales function. How important do you think that those things are as it relates to helping support that process of getting candidates to look at you, consider your roles, and even, whether it's the active or the passive audience, how important is having a vibrant page or an optimized profile, do you think?
Yeah, it is extremely important these days. That, I know that. And now you get to talk to my marketing side of my brain, which I absolutely adore. But the reputation you have out, like, perception is reality. You and I both know that. And the first impression that most people are going to be able to get about your company, feedback from your employees, is going to be online. So having your LinkedIn profile, having your career pages, having your website all be stellar is extremely important. Having a good network is also really, really helpful, because we are talking about passive recruitment. It's very hard to do passive recruitment if you don't continually build your network. And LinkedIn is one of the most powerful tools to do that through. So the ability, so continuing to grow that network will do nothing but help you with recruitment, because you never know who knows that other person that you might need. So And also, when you are using LinkedIn as a recruitment tool, if you're using, let's say, Recruiter Lite, you have to have a certain amount of contact with people in order to actually message them.
So do you have, I
So,
just heard you say Recruiter Lite, and there might be some people going,
mhm.
wait, what's that? So are you well versed in using LinkedIn Recruiter as well as Recruiter Lite? Is that something, if someone has questions, you could help them with that, or?
We probably could help them a little bit with Recruiter Lite. I don't
Okay.
even say we're extensive with, I've used Recruiter on
Okay.
LinkedIn. But we use a couple other tools as well that I have just found to be a little bit more helpful.
Okay.
Um,
Mhm.
the As far as passive recruitment is concerned, there are actually, I shouldn't even say that. There are multiple tools for different job roles.
True.
So LinkedIn is a fantastic platform for us when we need to reach out to those folks who are typically in salaried roles. And it continues to be a great feature, but we have found we're able to do that through Recruiter Lite. So we just haven't had to go to the recruiter in order to make that work for us.
That's
Um,
good,
yeah,
right? You wanna
yeah.
use
So
all the available, I mean, you're trying to find the best people, but sometimes
right,
you've gotta pay and you gotta go a little bit deeper
yeah,
to find those. But, to the point of, I think even, when you think about the passive job seeker market, paying to put a job on LinkedIn or Indeed or all of these other platforms is not necessarily going to reach that candidate.
right,
If you have the job postings up, once you get their attention, whether it's through posts or conversations or other, and then they start to come back and look at the postings, great, it's there. But I think it's kind of that. I love that you said you've got a marketing background, and we're talking about this recruiting function as well, because you get it. It's the whole package, and it's
yeah,
the candidate experience from
yeah.
start to finish. So, we're going to start to wrap up our chat here. Heather, any final comments for folks, and maybe advice that haven't approached their hiring as a sales function of their organization? Any advice you'd like to give to them?
Yeah. I would say today it's just not only about selling your company to those who want your service and products, but how you sell your company to those who will make it successful. Better recruitment, higher qualified candidates. They do nothing but lessen the cost. They increase your revenue. It gives you a better employee experience, a better candidate experience. And it's ultimately going to give you a better customer experience. So investing in this, I think, is so integral to any company who wants to grow and have just tremendous success through that growth. We don't want to bog our entire organization down with constantly replacing roles. So really focusing in on those passive recruitments, those people who can fill those jobs really well, and selling your company to them. I just can't recommend anything higher than that right now. And it does. I can honestly say it does work, because I think people really feel how genuinely we want to pair them with the role we're putting them in order not only for the company to be successful, but for them to be fully satisfied and really love their work on a daily basis. When I said I was a matchmaker, that's absolutely 100% true. I am always hoping as much for the candidate to be as happy with the role as I am for the company to be happy with the candidate.
I love it. And I want to just give one quick shout out, because I was going into comments and I saw some folks watching, and you can't see this in screen right now, but I saw Brent Huntoon. He's a digital marketing specialist at Business Resources One. So I think he must be on your team over there. I think it is such a great thing to see employees interacting with each other on LinkedIn. And I want to just, we're talking about culture and this whole thing,
Yeah.
like recruiting as a sales function, that shows a strong culture when you have people that were coming. I don't know if you told Brent or not to come on. I think it's great.
Yeah.
And I think you even posted on LinkedIn this morning to share and encourage people to come out. But when companies, are having employees interact with each other, whether it's on your company page or on your individual postings like that, I think it shows such a great culture. And I just commend you, Brent, for joining us. And thank you. Great job to you, Brent, for joining us. And then as we start to
Yeah.
wrap up our time here, I'm going to pull up your LinkedIn URL up on screen, and I'm kind of navigating and piloting at the same time. So give me just a second here. Heather, are you open to accepting invitations from folks that are watching today, or what's
Oh,
your
yeah.
preference there?
Yeah, absolutely. I always like expanding my network. I don't think there's any time that's ever something that people shouldn't do, especially on LinkedIn. It's
Yeah.
such a fantastic platform.
Well, I just want to commend you on your profile, because I see you've got a really great headshot on there, branded background. So I want to encourage folks, if you do go to Heather's profile and connect with her. Do you have creator mode set up on your profile? Do you know, Heather? I think you might, because I see the link that's underneath here now.
I don't know if I have creator mode or not.
So, when we're done with the call, go into your profile and there's under
Yeah,
the resources section of the profile, see if creator mode is turned on. I think it is because you have the custom URL, unless they've rolled
right.
it out. Oh, you do, because it says talks about at the top and you have a hashtag on your profile, which tells me that you've turned on creator mode. So for our
Okay.
audience, if you visit Heather's profile, I'm going to drop the link into the comments in just a second here. If you visit her profile, the default button where mine says message because we are already connected, your default button will say follow. If you want to connect with Heather, you'll have to go to the more button, which is 2 buttons over, and then click on that. And underneath, you'll see an option that will either say personalize invite or connect. You'll want to personalize the invite or connect and add a note. And then just mention that you heard Heather on the interview with Brenda Meller. Name drop me in there if you can. And that way she'll know where you came from. It's a little bit of a workaround because if you have creator mode turned on, there's a hurdle that's created, Heather, and a lot of people don't know this. When you turn on creator mode, your default button, instead of saying connect, it
Yeah.
becomes follow. And follow is a one-way action. You can see their updates in your homepage feed, but connect, you send an invitation, one person initiates sending that invitation and the other person has to accept it. And then you have the ability to message each other back and forth unlimited, and you have permission to message them. So a little bit of a pro tip on there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it must have been automatically turned on because I
It's
don't remember doing
confusing, and
it.
I think what happened is when that feature rolled out, and you're not alone in this too, Heather. When that feature rolled out, a lot of people are like, "Oh, creator mode, sure, I'll turn that on," but they didn't realize the implications
Yeah.
of turning that on would affect their profile. And there's definite pros, the hashtags and the custom links and things like that. But I always like to give a little plug when I see that on profiles. So Heather, thank you so much for your time today. Anything that you're working on right now, or any asks that you have for your network that you'd like us to be aware of before we wrap?
No, no major asks. I have to say that the biggest thing is just reach out and let us know if you need our help. Or if even it's just advice. I'm always open to chit chatting with folks. I like exchange of ideas. I think, we never stop growing. So happy to chat with anybody who just needs a word or two on maybe a way to find or look for a particular person. Happy to help. So
Awesome.
yeah. Yeah.
All right, good. And I think I'm just pulling up the web page. I'm trying to like navigate in the background over here as well. I'm going to pull this up on screen for us real quick. So they could either connect with you on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
or I'm vamping here. They could go to your website, which I believe is businessresources1.com. Does that
Correct.
sound right?
Yes, that is right.
All
Yep.
right, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Heather. It's been a delight. This conversation, I think you and I are very much aligned in our approach to both marketing and recruiting and top talent, and both the recruiting and the hiring side. So I just want to thank you so much for the time today.
Oh, thank you, Brenda, for having me. I appreciate it. And it was great to finally speak with you.
It was after all this time. Well, thank you. And for our audience, whether you are watching this in live or in playback, I would love to ask you to do one thing if you're able to, if you're not a candidate that doesn't want people to know that you're watching this. And that is, before you leave, if you did enjoy this discussion, click on share when the video is done playing, and you can share this as a post with your network. You never know who it's going to reach. It might reach a company who is going about the recruiting process all wrong, who can help, who can learn from Heather and the help and the advice that she's offered today. Or you might be able to reach a potential candidate who is not looking, that passive audience that we've talked about today. And maybe the next time some recruiter or hiring manager pings them on LinkedIn and says, let's have a chat, maybe that'll be enough to get them to have that conversation, because they heard here today, don't turn down a conversation, turn down a job offer. So you never know who that's going to help. And if you do share that out, just please tag Heather in the post that she knows that we're spreading this far and wide. And with that said, everyone, have a wonderful week. We look forward to seeing you and connecting with you all on LinkedIn. Thank you so much for watching. And Heather, hopefully we'll be able to chance to meet in person at some point someday. And
Yeah, I'd love that.
yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, guys. Have a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe and stay healthy, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.